They were promised protection. Instead, they were left to die. In 1851, the Oatman family set out across the Arizona desert seeking a new life. What they found was blood, betrayal, and one of the most haunting survival stories in frontier history. The Oatmans were a deeply religious family, followers of a breakaway sect of Mormonism known as Brewsterites. In 1850, they joined a wagon train headed west, seeking the land of Bashan, a promised land where their people could gather in peace. Led by patriarch Royce Oatman, the family included his wife, Mary Ann, and their 7 children. From the beginning, the journey was fraught with hardship. The Brewsterites quarreled among themselves. The desert terrain was harsh. Supplies were short. Eventually, Royce made a fateful decision. He would break off from the main group and take his family ahead. Alone. They were warned. Settlers who had traveled that road before told him not to risk it. The route ahead passed through dangerous, poorly mapped territory in what is now Arizona. But Royce, driven by faith or stubbornness, or both, pressed on. On February 18, 1851, the Oatmans were approached by a small group of Native Americans near the banks of the Gila River. The group, believed to be Tolkapayas, or possibly Yavapai, asked for food. The Oatmans gave them some. But it wasn't enough. The men returned later, angry, armed, and ready to take what they wanted. What happened next was swift and merciless. The attackers fell upon the Oatmans without warning. Royce, Mary Ann, and 4 of the children were killed on the spot. Only 3 survived: Lorenzo, who was beaten and left for dead, and 2 daughters, Olive and Mary Ann, who were taken captive. Lorenzo later regained consciousness and crawled for miles until he was found by a passing wagon. His face was battered. His family was gone. But he refused to give up, dedicating the rest of his life to searching for his sisters. Meanwhile, Olive and Mary Ann were forced into slavery. Their captors led them deep into the desert, where they were traded to a Mojave tribe. There, the girls were tattooed on their chins, a Mojave tradition that marked them as tribal property, or possibly as people who would be welcomed into the afterlife. For years, the 2 girls lived among the Mojave. They were not abused, but they were not free. They worked. They learned the language. Mary Ann, the younger sister, eventually died of starvation during a drought. Olive lived on. Then, in 1856, 5 years after her capture, a white messenger appeared at the Mojave village. Word had spread of a blue-eyed woman living among the tribe. The U.S. government demanded her release. Under pressure, the Mojave relented. Olive was brought to Fort Yuma. She wore traditional Mojave clothing, spoke in their dialect, and carried the tattoos that would mark her forever. When reporters asked her about her time in captivity, she spoke cautiously. Some said she defended the Mojave. Others claimed she had hidden parts of the truth. What is clear is that Olive Oatman became a sensation. Her story was published in newspapers and books. She gave lectures across the country, often dressed in black, recounting her ordeal. Her chin tattoo, stark and strange to white audiences, became a symbol of everything the frontier represented: fear, mystery, and the thin line between civilization and savagery. But behind the fame, Olive struggled. She never saw the Mojave again. She never married. Her speeches grew more withdrawn. She died in 1903, still carrying the ink and the memory of the sister she buried in the desert. The Oatman family tragedy is remembered for its brutality, but also for what it reveals about the complexity of frontier life. The people who attacked them were desperate. The tribe that took Olive in treated her with unexpected humanity, and Olive herself lived between 2 identities, never fully part of either world again. It began with faith. It ended in blood. And the scars of that journey were carved not just into skin, but into the history of the American West. Thank you for listening to Deserted Trails. If this story moved you, consider joining us again as we uncover more forgotten truths from the American frontier.